Okay, so we all know AI is going to change, well, everything. But here's the thing you probably haven't heard. There's a multi-trillion-dollar secret hiding in plain sight. It's all about who's actually footing the bill for the insane amount of power AI needs to run. And trust me, the answer is probably not who you think.
There's this line going around with the real insiders, the people in the know, and it just perfectly captures what's happening. They're saying the banks aren't funding the AI revolution, private capital is. And look, this isn't just some minor adjustment in the market. No. This is a massive earth-shaking event in the world of finance.
Because, see, this story isn't just about AI being a power-hungry beast. I mean, it is, but the real story, the one that changes the game, is about who. Who has the guts, or maybe just the right kind of setup to write the gigantic checks to feed that beast. And let's be real, when you control the power switch, you control a whole lot more than just the lights.
And that right there brings us to the absolute core of the problem, a $41 trillion gap. So let's break down why traditional money, the big banks we all think of for huge projects, is just sitting on the bench during what is probably the biggest infrastructure build-out of our lifetime.
Which, of course, raises the big, obvious question, right? If building the power grid for the AI future is so important, and you'd think so incredibly profitable, then why in the world are the big traditional banks keeping their distance?
Well, the answer is actually pretty straightforward. For your typical bank, all tangled up in heavy regulations and super cautious risk models, these gigantic long-term energy projects, they're too risky, too speculative. They just don't fit into their neat little boxes. And that hesitation, well, it leaves a huge vacuum in the market.
And this is the size of that vacuum we're talking about. $41 trillion. I mean, just let that sink in. That is the estimated gap in funding for the energy grid we need for the future. And it's a gap that the old-school financial world just isn't stepping up to fill.
So this really paints the perfect picture of why. You've got two different players here. On one side, you have the traditional banks, slow-moving, super cautious, wrapped up in regulations. And on the other side, you've got private credit. They're fast, they're flexible, and they have a massive appetite for exactly this kind of high-risk, high-reward game.
Now, a vacuum that big doesn't stay empty for long, right? It's given rise to this entirely new class of financiers. People are starting to call them shadow utilities. These are the new power brokers, the ones bankrolling the entire AI revolution from behind the scenes.
So what in the world is private credit? The easiest way to think about it is like a parallel financial system. It's basically lending money directly to companies, but it's not coming from a bank. It's coming from these other big financial players. And because it's not a bank, it's way faster, it's more nimble, and it doesn't have to play by all the same old rules. But here's where it gets really interesting. These firms, they're not just acting like your average lender. By funding and basically deciding the future of our entire energy grid, they are becoming these new shadow utilities. They're literally building the invisible backbone of our new AI-powered world. And by doing that, they're gaining this enormous unspoken power over pretty much everything.
And we're not talking about some small, scrappy startups here. These are the absolute titans of the investment universe. You've got giants like BlackRock, Brookfield, Blackstone. They're the ones leading the charge, just pouring billions and billions of dollars into this space.
Yeah, and this isn't just a bunch of numbers flying around on a computer screen. This money is being turned into actual concrete and steel. We're talking about them funding and building the real deal, next-generation power grid. This includes some seriously cool tech, like small modular reactors, or SMRs. Think of them as these compact, next-gen nuclear power plants, basically built from the ground up for the AI era.
Okay, so we've established this is a massive shakeup in global finance. But what does it actually mean for you, for an investor? Right, let's follow the smart money here and lay out a quick roadmap so you can get your head around this new landscape.
So that leads us to the million-dollar question, right? Or maybe the $41 trillion question. How can an everyday investor actually get a piece of this action? Where are the opportunities in this huge capital shift?
Okay, so at a high level, there are a couple of main ways to think about this. First, you've got something called private credit ETFs. These are basically funds you can buy right on the stock market, and they give you a way to tap into the profits being made from all this lending without needing to be a billionaire yourself. The second way is to look directly at the infrastructure giants, the companies actually out there building the grid. The big idea here is that the market might not have fully woken up to just how massive the demand from AI is going to be by 2026. So there's a chance these super important companies are actually undervalued right now.
So if you take away just one thing, let it be this. This is not just another tech trend. What we are watching happen right now is a fundamental change to the very engine of our economy. The rulebook for how we fund and build a future is being torn up and rewritten. Power is shifting away from the old guard and into the hands of private capital. And believe me, a shift in funding always means a shift in power.
And that leaves us with one last kind of mind-bending question to chew on. As these private firms take over the job of funding our most critical infrastructure, are these so-called shadow utilities actually becoming the new banks of the future? And if so, are they even more powerful?